Hey guys, how's it going? Ryan here, back again with another tutorial, and today I'm going to be talking about my mixing and post-production process for my Subharmonicon and Mother 32 videos. I've been getting some questions recently from some people asking just sort of what goes on behind the scenes of making these videos, and I figure what better way to go ahead and describe it than to just make a video about it. So what I have here is a Logic Pro 10 file of my most recent recording, and I think to start off, let's go ahead and listen to a sample of that video, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the mixing process. Okay, so as we can see, this is a pretty typical video of mine. We have the Subharmonicon handling the rhythm and melody, and then the Mother 32 is playing a lead over top. So how I record them is I use the 1/4-inch outputs on each synth going into the inputs on my audio interface. So on the Subharmonicon, we can see it's being recorded via input 1, and then the Mother 32 is going into input 2, and then this leaves me with 2 separate tracks in Logic Pro, allowing me to adjust the volume separately for each track, and of course put different plugins on each of the tracks. So it really gives me a lot of control over the mix. So getting into the production side of things here, we have the Subharmonicon track, the Mother 32 track, and then these 2 Subharmonicon duplicate tracks. And I'll explain in just a minute why I've gone ahead and duplicated the Subharmonicon track. So to start things off, on the Subharmonicon we have an EQ, and on the EQ we're just doing a slight boost in the higher end frequencies, and that's just to sort of increase the clarity just a bit. And then for the low end, I've rolled off everything at about 125 Hertz. And again, this sort of low end frequency space here is what's duplicated down here. And I wanted to treat the low end frequencies differently than how I treated the entire track. So if we quickly move on to the sort of low mid section here, for the Subharmonicon duplicate, we have another EQ. And again, it's just sort of these low-end frequencies here. Everything else is cut out. And what we're doing is we're just adding a little bit of saturation to that low end. And I'm using the ozone exciter here. So again, just a very minor saturation to excite those low-end frequencies. There is no reverb or effects on this lower end track. It's just the low end frequencies with a bit of saturation. So just to quickly play that for you, I'll first play the Subharmonicon track by itself, and then I'll add in this sort of low end frequencies here. And now the low end frequencies. So again, the change is fairly subtle, but I just wanted to add a bit more excitement to that sort of low-end frequency spectrum. And the reason for not having any reverb on these sort of low-mid frequencies is because if you start adding reverb to these low-end frequencies, you're very quickly going to end up with a muddy mix, and you're going to lose a lot of clarity. So I typically don't have reverb for things under about, I don't know, about 300, 350 Hertz. It really depends on the track, but yeah, just sort of some food for thought there. And then I have another duplicate Subharmonicon track, which I then pitched down an octave, and this is handling sort of these sub frequencies. I really wanted to have some added sub content, and although you can do this with the Subharmonicon itself, I just couldn't get things to sound how I wanted, so I went ahead and just did the duplicate track here, pitched it down, and then I ended up with these sort of lower sub frequencies. So I'm just going to quickly play this for you now. Now, you're probably only going to be able to hear that if you have a decent pair of headphones or studio monitors. If you're listening on a phone or with like smaller earbuds, you're probably not going to hear these low-end frequencies. So again, on the sub track, we do have another EQ, just sort of the very, very low-end frequencies here. And then on top of that, we have waves R bass, just again to sort of saturate those sort of low end frequencies. So altogether, the Subharmonicon track sounds a lot richer and fuller. Okay, so that's about it for the Subharmonicon. Moving on to the Mother 32, we also have an EQ, and again we are rolling off the low-end frequencies because there's basically nothing going on down there, and then we're doing a slight shelf boost on the high end, again just for some added clarity for that part. And then on top of the EQ, we have a compressor, and again I think we're just doing some very slight compression, so let's just go ahead and listen to that soloed by itself. Okay, so as we can hear, we're actually just doing maybe about 2 to 3 decibels of compression there. And again, just to sort of tame those sort of transients there. And then we have 3 different buses here. The first one is the Valhalla Shimmer. The second is Logic Stereo Delay. And then the third is Valhalla Room reverb. So 2 different reverbs and 1 delay for the Mother 32 and just various blends of each amount. So after I treat the individual tracks, after I balance the levels, let's check out the automation here. So in most cases, I really don't need to do a whole lot of volume or effects automation. In this case, there's a couple parts on the duplicated Subharmonicon tracks that needed a little bit of volume automation because they got a little bit too hot or too loud. So yeah, just adding some slight volume automation. If this was a full-on production with drums and many different instruments, this would look a lot more complex and intense. But for the purposes of these sort of live performance videos, I like to keep them rather genuine to just a live performance and really only make some subtle changes in post afterwards. And then finally, for the sort of output quote-unquote mastering chain, again, this isn't how I would normally treat a full-on production. Typically how I would treat a full mix is after the whole mix process, I would render that or bounce it down to a stereo file and then bring that into a separate mastering file and do a separate master over top of it. Or if it was an album, you could send it out to a mastering engineer or something. But for the purposes of these live performance, I just sort of do just a quick and easy version. So on the output chain here, we have an SSL compressor. And again, when I have a mastering chain, it's very subtle. The changes are maybe half a decibel or maybe a decibel tops of volume reduction in terms of compression. I like to keep things very subtle for the mastering chain. We have a Pultec EQ here. Again, it's really just for some very subtle saturation. We can see half a decibel for the gain and a little bit of boost in the sort of higher and lower frequencies. We have another channel EQ. Again, taming some of that mid-band frequencies, and that's about it. And then finally, we have a limiter, and I like using the L2 waves limiter. And again, this part here, it's just a matter of making sure nothing peaks, nothing clips, and bringing up the overall volume if it ends up being a little bit quiet. And then at the end, there's a multimeter. This doesn't really affect anything. This essentially just allows me to see sort of the stereo image. So obviously we can see myself talking here is a perfect mono sound. If I play the track here, it sort of gives you a sense of the frequency range. So for example, if I play the full mix here, it just kind of gives me an idea of what the frequency spectrum is looking like and if I need to make any changes to it. Yeah, and that's basically all there is to it. So if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. Like I said, I really do like to keep these live performances very, very minimal in terms of production, because for someone who only has a couple of synthesizers, it really does make the overall process very simplified, and in most cases I don't like to make things too complex. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. As I said, if you have any questions, definitely leave me a comment below and I'll try my best to answer it. And if you want to see more sort of mixing, or I guess production videos, yeah, let me know as well. It's been a while since I've made any videos kind of along this style. I've really just been focusing more on the performance side of things. I've really been enjoying that, but yeah, perhaps if I have people who are interested in the sort of post side of things, then yeah, that would be good to know, because well, then I could start making more videos like this. So that's it, guys. Enough rambling for now. Hope you enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.